The scorching sun beat down on the dusty plains of Texas. A dry wind swept across the parched land, lifting small clouds of dust into the sky. Everything here looked tired: worn fences, brittle grass, and an old barn that had seen better days. Life wasn't easy on the ranch, especially not for Luke Callahan, a rancher in his late 30s trying to hold on to his family's land while drowning in debt. Luke leaned against the fence post, sweat glistening on his forehead as he stared at the horizon. The crops had failed again, the bank had called twice that morning, and he'd just sold 2 more of his cattle to keep the lights on. He didn't know how much longer he could hold out. With no wife, no kids, and barely any help, the silence on the ranch was starting to feel heavier than ever. Suddenly, from the long dirt road that led to the ranch, he spotted something unusual. A woman. She was walking alone, her jeans dusty, her boots worn out, and her oversized coat hanging off her shoulders like it didn't belong to her. A backpack sagged behind her, and she had a look in her eyes that was both cautious and determined. As she approached the wooden gate, Luke straightened up and squinted. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his tone more confused than hostile. She stopped a few feet away, pushed the sweat-matted hair out of her face, and looked him in the eye. "My name's Ella," she said softly. "I've been walking a long time. I don't have much a broken bar, but if you'll let me clean your barn, maybe help out, I'd be grateful for a plate of food." Luke was caught off guard. He wasn't used to strangers showing up like these, especially not women. Something about her presence stirred a long-dormant feeling in him. He hesitated. "I don't normally take in strangers," he said cautiously. "I'm not asking for charity," she replied quickly. "Just a chance to earn a meal, that's all." Something in her voice, maybe the desperation, maybe the pride, hit him in the chest. After a long pause, he nodded toward the barn. "You clean that out, and I'll see what I can put together," he said, almost surprising himself. Ella gave a small smile of gratitude, dropped her backpack near the fence, and walked toward the barn without another word. For the next few hours, Luke watched from a distance. She worked with a quiet intensity, shoveling old hay, sweeping out dust, and stacking tools neatly. She didn't ask for help, didn't complain, didn't even stop for water. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, the barn looked better than it had in years. Luke set a plate of food, eggs, cornbread, and a little smoked meat on the porch table. When Ella walked up, her face flushed and hands calloused, she looked at the food like it was a feast. "Thank you," she whispered, sitting down without ceremony. "You worked hard," Luke replied. "You earned it." They ate mostly in silence, broken only by the occasional call of a hawk or the distant bark of a dog. As darkness settled over the ranch, Luke cleared his throat. "You got somewhere to go after this?" Ella looked up, her expression unreadable. "Not really," she said. "I left a lot behind. Just trying to find my feet again." Luke nodded slowly. "I could use help around here. Not much pay, but there's a spare room in the house. It ain't fancy, but it's got a bed." Ella's eyes glistened faintly. "You sure?" "I'm not in the habit of letting strangers in," Luke admitted. "But a broken bar, I've got a feeling you're not just passing through." Days turned into weeks. Ella became part of the ranch in a way Luke hadn't expected. She woke before dawn, fed the animals, repaired the chicken coop, and even managed to fix the old tractor he'd nearly given up on. She wasn't just hard-working, she was smart, gentle with the animals, and brought a kind of quiet calm that the ranch hadn't felt in years. Luke learned bits and pieces about her. That she had once studied veterinary science, that she'd left an abusive relationship with nothing but the clothes on her back, that she loved the sound of rain and missed her mother's cooking. But the more Luke learned, the more he realized he didn't need to know everything. Ella was like a wounded wild animal, grateful but cautious, and he respected that. One evening, after fixing a broken fence together, they sat under the stars. The moon cast a soft glow over the fields. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Ella asked. "Every day," Luke said with a chuckle. "But every time I think about selling, I remember my dad building that barn, my mom planting those sunflowers. A broken bar, it's more than just land, it's memory." Ella nodded. "I know that feeling." They sat in silence for a while. Then, without looking at her, Luke said, "I don't know what brought you here, but a broken bar. I'm glad you came." Ella didn't reply. but he saw the faintest smile cross her lips. One morning, a black SUV pulled up the dirt road. Luke and Ella were fixing the water pump when the car stopped near the house. A man in a suit stepped out, a sleek, polished, out-of-place. "Ella Carter?" he called out. Ella froze. Luke looked at her. Her face had drained of color. The man approached, eyes scanning the ranch. "I'm from Harlan Industries," he said. "Your uncle passed away, left you something in his will. We've been looking for you for months." Ella was stunned. "I haven't seen my uncle in years." "A broken bar. He left you his estate and controlling shares in the company. You're a very wealthy woman now, Miss Carter." Luke stared at her. "Wealthy? Company shares?" This woman who had walked up to his gate with nothing but a backpack. The man handed her a thick envelope. "All the details are inside. We'll need your signature by the end of the week." He left as quickly as he'd arrived. Luke and Ella stood in silence. "That a broken bar doesn't change anything," she said after a long pause. "You sure about that?" Luke asked. She nodded. "I didn't come here for money. I came because I needed peace, and I found it." In the weeks that followed, Ella didn't leave. She signed the papers, yes, but she turned down the board seat, gave most of her inheritance to shelters and rural hospitals, and bought Luke new equipment for the ranch without saying a word. One night, while watching the sunset from the porch, she finally said what had been sitting on her heart. "You gave me more than a plate of food," she whispered. "You gave me dignity, a second chance." Luke reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "You saved this place," he said, "and maybe broken bar you saved me too." Years later, the ranch would become a small sanctuary offering work and shelter to women trying to rebuild their lives, just like Ella once did. Together, she and Luke would grow more than crops, they'd grow hope. And it all started with 7 words: "Can I clean your barn for food?"